So before we begin, I'd like to take a minute to introduce you to your hosts, the board of directors. First, we have Yolanda Gibson and Brenda Camarena as co-chairs of the Marin Latino Leaders. Monica Cañas manages public relations. Yolanda Barahona is our treasurer, and I'm honored to serve as secretary. We would also love to welcome our two newest board members, Jonathan Deras, who will serve as our social media manager, and Nancy Palacios Devereaux, who will be filling our other new position as cultural officer. We are extremely excited at the increased impact this expansion of the board will bring to the work of the Marin Latino Leaders in support of our statement of purpose. Along those lines, I also want to encourage you to follow us and keep track of goings on through email and social media. You can see the information at the bottom of the slide here. Before I pass the microphone back over to our chair, Yolanda, to provide her welcome, I'd like to review our statement of purpose, which reads, Marin Latino Leaders was created to support and elevate the Latino voice in Marin County by recognizing leadership through networking opportunities that empowers the sharing of their challenges and successes. It is a platform to raise one voice for political, social, educational, and economic change for the enhancement of the Latino community. Marin Latino Leaders is committed to make this a successful entity by featuring speakers that have succeeded in their careers or have contributed to the community. That said, I'd love to turn it over now to our chair, Yolanda Gibson.
Good morning, buenas tardes, buenos dias. Welcome to our Marin Latino Leaders virtual luncheon. I do want to mention that I am really excited about announcing that we will have live luncheons again starting in September 21st, back at San Rafael Joe's. Right now, I would like to acknowledge the elected officials and special guests. Supervisor Damon Conley, Fernando Barreto, who is the aide to Marin County Supervisor Dennis Rodoni, Linda Jackson, President of San Rafael City School Board, Lisa Bennett, Trustee Sausalito Marin City School District, Lucia Martel, Trustee San Rafael City School Board, Jim Correa, Captain of Novato Police Department, and Roy Leon, Captain of San Rafael Police Department. And I don't know if Marcia Quinones is present, but she is also the Marin Community Foundation officer. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Yolanda, for acknowledging our elected officials, special guests, and doing your little welcome. So I have the pleasure today of introducing our speakers for today. We have Mr. Supervisor Dennis Rodoni, who's the supervisor for District 4 in the County of Marin, as well as Jamillah Jordan, who is the new Equity Director of the Office of Equity for the County of Marin. Thank you both for being here. I also wanted to introduce Fernando Barreto, who is a new aide to Dennis Rodoni. Many of you may be familiar with Fernando. He was formerly the community engagement coordinator at the Canal Alliance for, I think, over 5 years. Many of you have seen him just in the community, on social media. I think he was also a guest speaker here, one of our luncheons prior. He's been very instrumental to, educating the Latino community in Marin about, very important issues, very important topics. He was very engaged in the initiatives such as the Census 2020 and the Elections 2020. And we were just really excited to continue this partnership with Fernando now as the aide to Supervisor Rodoni. So welcome and congratulations, Fernando. And so the order that our speakers are gonna present, it will be first Dennis Rodoni will speak, and then after Jamillah Jordan will give her presentation. And then once Ms. Jordan is done, we will go into Q&A. Okay, so here's a little background on Supervisor Rodoni. Dennis Rodoni was born in Marin County, where his family has resided over 4 generations in the Point Reyes area. Dennis attended Inverness School, West Marin School, and Tamales High School. Later, he attended Chico State University, where he earned an honors degree in economics. After graduating, Dennis taught at a high school in Australia where he met his wife, and later together they moved back to Marin to his home community. After spending several years as a teacher and over 38 years running a small business as an infill home builder and custom home remodeler, Dennis was able to step into his position as Marin County District 4 Supervisor in January of 2017 and jump into action as an effective leader. Thank you, Dennis, for being here. We're so excited to learn more from you. And but before you begin, I will go over Jamillah's background as well. Jamillah Jordan is Marin County's new Equity Director. Jamillah is a multidisciplinary strategist, urban planner, and social justice leader with over 12 years of experience catalyzing systems change. She recently led the development of the county's 2022 Race Equity Action Plan. Currently, Jamillah leads Marin County's Office of Equity, working across 22 agencies and departments to develop, implement, and evaluate innovative strategies that dismantle systemic barriers to enrich the lives of those served by the county. Her diverse leadership experience is rooted in forging collaborative partnerships among community-based organizations, local government, and elected officials to advance institutional change that creates better outcomes for everyone, particularly our marginalized communities. So thank you both again for being here, and I will pass the microphone on to Supervisor Rodoni.
Thank you, Monica. Really a great introduction. I really appreciated that. And it's nice to see so many familiar faces and see some new faces that I haven't met before. Looking forward to getting together with you at some point in the future. I think a few years back, I did speak to you at one of your luncheons at Santa Fe Joe's. That probably was maybe 4 years ago, but it's been a long time. Nice to see you all again. And I do thank you for introducing Fernando. Really excited about having Fernando on our team. And I just am amazed at the number of people that already know Fernando throughout Marin. So it's really exciting to have someone that's so well recognized. I wanted to start by just talking a little bit about my new district now. As you know, we went through redistricting in Marin recently, and I added population in San Rafael, which now means that District 4 in East San Rafael has the largest, I have the largest Spanish-speaking population in all of Marin, and especially if you combine that with the Spanish-speaking population of West Marin. What's really nice about this realignment, and why I was so excited about it, was that my district in San Rafael now aligns perfectly with Micah Gelati's district at the city council. And so I really feel that this is giving the Spanish-speaking community one voice, both on the city council and at the county board of supervisors, which I think is a unique opportunity. And I really am looking forward to continuing to work with Micah to make sure that we both work on good policies related to our East San Rafael district. You may or may not know, I'm one of 2 board members who serves on the Equity Subcommittee. That's a subcommittee of the board that advises administration and Jamillah in her capacity as equity director and gives hopefully good direction to them. I think like many of you, I've been frustrated with the lack of progress on equity, and I think we all could probably raise our hand when we come to that discussion. From my perspective, way too much talking and not enough action. But I'm pleased to say that I think we're in a new space now, and we're really beginning to turn that corner. Part of the reason is because Jamillah Jordan has joined us as equity director. But the other part of the reason is that I feel the board is really a strong commitment. Board and administration at the county has a strong commitment now to make a difference when it comes to equity. We have allocated $6.7 million over the next couple years to address equity issues. Some of that money will be both internally at the county, but some of that money will also be, a great portion of it, over half of it, will be externally working with our communities to figuring out what sorts of programs and projects they want to see going forward that will help really bridge this equity divide that we saw amplified during COVID. I'm not going to go into a lot of those equity programs and what Jamillah is going to present to you today, because she's much better at doing that. I know she has a lot she will present, but I wanted to just sort of talk about what my office has been doing around equity. And part of what we've been doing is we've been working over the last couple of years with the county and the city of San Rafael to make sure that we bring proper services to our community during COVID. And now as we begin to recover, we want to make sure that we continue to focus on equity in our low-income communities, basically around making sure we have good jobs, good job training, better wages, good housing, healthcare and mental health care. And those are really at the forefront of what we want to focus on, at least in my office. In doing that, during the COVID, we formed the Canal Policy Working Group, which is a small, efficient group of CBOs and members of the city of San Rafael, including elected members. Its sole purpose is to work on policies that will make a difference in Eastern San Rafael. One of the things we discovered in this group, while we're focused on Eastern San Rafael and the Canal District, many of the policies that we bring forth and decide are good choices for this group are really accepted countywide as good government and good policy. So we're excited about that, and we're excited about this group moving forward now, really focusing on the recovery and the types of things we need to do during the recovery. The other thing we've just started, it's been in a year and a half in the making, is the Canal Collaborative. And it is in a stage right now where we're trying to figure out what it's going to do and what it's going to be. But the idea of this collaborative really was to bring another voice to the table, all voices to the table in the Eastern San Rafael, the residents, the CBOs, the school districts, and the business community, and really any other interested party to the table to meet on a regular basis and just have discussions about what's important to them. One of the things that we really feel like in my office, and we think it's true, is that we often don't get enough input from our low-income communities when we're doing policy decisions. Sometimes it's just not there. So the idea of the collaborative is hopefully to bring together a group of people that could, and we want this to be self-determined, that will lead themselves as to what they want to do and what issues they want to deal with. But we also have the hope that they will become a unified voice to bringing us messages about what our residents in the canal really need and want. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we've been working on, and they haven't been successful, because I always want to remember what we're not successful too, because that encourages us to work harder in the future. We tried to bring immigration reform to the board in the form of a sanctuary county a couple times over the last 4 years. I'm sorry to say that never made it to the end line. We instead passed resolutions instead. But it's not something I've lost sight of, that I think Marin would benefit from being in a sanctuary county. But we have made a lot of progress related to progress with the sheriff at the jail and how he deals with ICE requests and how he deals with our immigrant community in particular. So those are some of the issues around equity that I think have been important to us. I know Jamillah will talk about many other things that the county is going to do. But I also wanted to talk about the digital divide that we all became very, very aware of during COVID, when kids ended up out of school and having to work from home. And really, it's not about lack of internet, it's about poor quality internet. Almost everyone has access to internet, but it's really the quality of that internet, whether you're able to use your Chromebook or laptop to actually do your schoolwork. And so a couple of things that we worked on and we made great progress on were, and these were with multiple partners, by the way, in the canal Wi-Fi project, which brought free Wi-Fi to all of the canal, all the students in the canal and residents of the canal during COVID. And this is really a project that we worked with the Canal Alliance, Marin County Free Library, the County of Marin, Marin Community Foundation, City of Santa Fe City Schools. And it was a very successful program that happened in a very short time. And that's not usually the case with government and projects we worked on, but in a very short few months, we were able to get a Wi-Fi system up and working in the canal that benefited our students and our residents. Since then, we've actually expanded that idea and we've moved into a Stinson Beach Bolinas School District free Wi-Fi program, which is serving about 75 low-income families in that school district. We also have made progress in Marin City with Comcast, bringing better and free broadband to the Marin City residents. And then just recently, the Shoreline School District did the same thing. About 50 families are now being, 50 families with students are now being served with high quality internet through a variety of servers, but one of them being Starlink, where the really, really remote families on dairies have no other option. We were able to put together a package with Starlink, and this has all been funded, and it's free, and it's funded for the next 2 to 3 years. We also have a digital strategic plan in place now, which was just completed by IT&T. Some of you may have participated in that. It was a great effort by IT&T. We really pulled together a strategic plan that I think sets the work plan for our future in Marin and where we need to go and what we need to do. And because of this strategic plan, we have now a format for getting grants from the state. As you know, there's a lot of federal and state grants that are being offered and will be offered over the next few years. And we feel like we're in a really good place to do that. We also have a 4-county collaboration with Sonoma, Mendocino, Napa, and Marin that we also work together to collect regional grants to help us move forward. And Marin has benefited from a couple of those regional grants that were specific to Marin and from the CPUC, which gave grants to Nicasio and Bolinas for broadband expansion. And those projects, the Nicasio project is finished. The Bolinas project is in progress. I know that emergency preparedness has been really important for discussion within this group, and it's really been important subject for our office. And how am I doing on time, Monica? Is anyone timing me? Okay.
Yeah, I think you have at least 5 more minutes.
Okay, great. And emergency preparedness is a priority of me in my office. I first got elected on that priority, and I've been working on it ever since. I currently am Director of Emergency Services for the county and representing the board, and I'm also chair of the DC3. And I really feel like we've made some progress since the 2017 fires. The County of Marin has made a lot of progress when it comes to emergency preparedness and getting our communities prepared. And I believe we're better prepared than we've ever been before. But as we've learned the last couple of years, different kinds of emergencies like COVID can pop up on you too that you're not as well prepared for. And so that's been an important lesson. I know making sure that our Spanish-speaking community is a priority of yours and a priority of mine. Finally, in 2019, the county was able to move to a system of alerts that includes other languages. Prior to that, they didn't have that option or they weren't doing it very well. And I'm really pleased to say that we've moved to a different system now where hopefully if you're signed up for Nexo or Alert Marin, you're getting messages in multiple languages now, and you have that choice of who you want to sign up for with as far as the language. One of the other things we were able to do in 2019, right before we went into COVID, was we had an event at Bahia Vista in conjunction with the school system there to attend one of their parent mornings where we brought state officials and county officials and city officials in that spoke Spanish to talk about emergency preparedness. And we were able to give away 100 go bags that day to families who had signed up for Alert Marin. So that was the ticket. You had to sign up for Alert Marin. If you did, we gave you a complete go bag for your emergency preparedness. We need to do more of those kinds of activities, especially in our low income communities, to just one, make them aware and also make them capable of being prepared for that emergency. I know rental assistance has been a big issue for our low income communities. And quite honestly, it's been quite overwhelming, I think, for the county and some of even our CBOs. The county has struggled at times with this. We still are continuing to distribute funds. We are working on the final 6 million is what I understand from a briefing I got 2 days ago. That money is pretty well committed with the number of applications we have. And so that's why they had to make some shifts in the program to make sure that previous applicants who have rents in the rear are going to be covered by this funding. In doing that, they had to stop doing prospective rents. Unfortunately, for the people who had borrowed money in the past to pay their rents, the way the county was addressing it within the regulations we have to deal with was they were paying future rent for the people who had borrowed money in the past to pay past rent. They had to stop that March 31st and not accept any more of those applications because of the funding limitation that we were looking at, making sure that we had enough funding going forward. The good news is that the current state revised budget has additional funding for rental assistance and utilities in it, and we will be going after that funding. The other thing that we're going after additional funding is the federal government has unused rental assistance money that they're allowing all the people who've been doing rental assistance who are now running out of money to actually apply for that excess money. So I've got my fingers crossed that we bring more money in for rental assistance, because I know there's still a lot of people that need to be served out there, and we need to replace those payments to landlords. It's been a really good program, but it's just been slow, and it's been hard to meet all the guidelines, and regulations are really tough. The federal government and the state government rolls out these great programs, but then when you see the red tape behind them, is really, really hard in many cases to administer, and even harder sometimes to explain to that low income family who hasn't been able to pay their rent for 12 months, why or why not they might be in line for rental funding. Couple kind of outside the box things I wanted to mention to you is we passed a reusable foodware ordinance in Marin, unincorporated Marin. We're hoping the cities adopt that going forward. We've built in an 18-month timeline that will allow the cities to adopt that. And then we also built in that 18-month timeline because we really want to encourage people to be early adopters. And in doing that, we have grants up to $500 available for small businesses that they can apply for to help them to adapt to the new standards that we want to bring forth in Marin. So an important aspect, and if any of you have members or relatives or anyone else in the business community that might be wondering what this is about, please reach out to my office and we'd be glad to share some information with you. The other thing that's even broader that we really are excited about is a leave no trace effort on our coastal shorelines. And we've made a partnership that we just passed the MOU yesterday with Mendocino, Sonoma, and Marin for a 3-county long-term commitment educational program. We've signed a contract with Leave No Trace, a nonprofit out of Colorado. And then we have individual nonprofits in each county who will work in those counties with nonprofit to help with Leave No Trace, to bring this program forward. And it's really about a unified message to tell our visitors and residents alike, we don't have the infrastructure to deal with the solid waste. We need you to take it home and hopefully properly dispose of it in your own recycling system. We're always looking for commissioners on our boards that we appoint at the county, and I know the city is likewise. We always would love to have commissioners, and my goal is really to have commissioners that reflect our county. And I'm pleased to say that over 75% of my appointments to commissions since I've been on the board in 6.5 years have been women and people of color. I'm really proud of that. and we'll continue to work on that. So, but please, as being activists in your community and potentially people who could step up and serve on commissions, please think about that and reach out to my staff if you need any help or any assistance. So I'm going to stop there. I've run through my list and looking forward to hearing from Jamillah. Monica, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I think it's, been long overdue that we wanted to hear, an update, especially on equity when it comes to equity at a countywide level. And so thank you so much for sharing an update, just an overview on all the different initiatives and just great things that are going on. And thank you for your work. I know you've been around and, really devoted to the Latino community as well. So thank you so much. And I know people might have a lot of questions for Supervisor Rodoni, but we will definitely address those in the Q&A section after our next speaker presents. So thank you, Dennis, and Jamillah, you may begin.
Okay, thank you so much. Hola y buenas tardes. Es un placer estar aquí con todos ustedes hoy. Mi nombre es Jamillah Jordan y soy la nueva directora de Equidad del Condado. Gracias por la invitación para venir y compartir un poco sobre mí, la Oficina de Equidad, y cómo podemos colaborar con Marin Latino Leaders. So that's the extent of my Spanish, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and switch into English now. Good morning, good afternoon. It's great to be here with all of you. My name is Jamillah Jordan, and I am the county's new equity director. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. I so appreciate the invitation, and I'm excited to share a little bit about myself, a little bit about our Office of Equity, and how we can work together. So we put together just a quick high-level presentation for you all, and I'm going to bring this up and we can go ahead and jump on in. All right, are you all seeing this presentation? Yep, okay, great. Let me make our slideshow. Okay, so let's get started. So I wanted to start just by sharing a little bit about myself and a little bit about my background. And I've spent most of my career as a community organizer, working with low-income communities of color, and really striving to create spaces and places that are invested in our collective well-being and our collective healing. And I'm most passionate about co-creating a world where everyone has equitable access to safe neighborhoods, to beautiful spaces, quality jobs, healthy food options, affordable housing, and active transportation, just to name a few. This is a world that we envision regardless of your race, regardless of your age, the language you speak, or your zip code. And I believe that this world is possible, but we have to challenge ourselves to think critically about power, to think about privilege, and to think about access. And ultimately, it's about working together. So we so appreciate you all inviting us to be here today and talk about how we can create better outcomes for everyone. But what is equity? This is a term that's often bandied about, and I feel like it bears an important piece is around defining it and creating a shared language for what is equity. And the way we define it here in the county is that it's the just and fair inclusion into a society where everyone can participate, can prosper, and can reach their full potential. So I want to share just a little bit about our team, our small but mighty group. I'm joined by some fantastic colleagues, and both of which are here today. My colleague, Sophia Martinez, who's our equity analyst, has been with the county for a couple of years now. A lot of you may know her name and face. We also have our new colleague, Manny Benitez, who is our administrative services associate. And just really pleased to have both of these really fantastic leaders on this team. So be on the lookout for these names, these faces. We plan to be out and about in community quite a bit. And I want to share just quickly a little bit about our mission here. So we're really focused and committed on establishing the County of Marin as an anti-racist, multicultural workforce. We're committed to community engagement, to accountability, and ultimately to transformational change. So this is our charge when we get up each and every day and come to work. And a little bit about our orientation to this equity approach. We really think it's important to be intersectional. And by that, I mean taking a holistic look at how a lot of our complex identities make up who we are. That includes our gender, our education level, our age, our disabilities, for example. So we look at all of those dimensions of equity, but for us, we think it's so important to be race forward or to lead with a race equity lens. And we do that because we know that race is just so important in our life outcomes. It really impacts how long we'll live, how much wealth we'll accrue, whether we live in an environment that has clean and safe air and water, for example, access to healthcare. So much is predicated on our race. And so for that reason, we think that it's important to lead with that lens, but not to the exclusion of other identities. We lead with race in an inclusive way, because all of these identities make up who we are, but we feel like we're able to have a greater impact when we lead with race. So I just like to share that because I think it's a pretty important foundational piece to our work. And as we think about race, you all may be familiar with the Race Counts reports that was released. The latest one was in 2021. And basically, this is a compilation of statewide data on racial disparities in California. And Marin has the distinction of being the second most racially disparate county in all of California, meaning it has the second highest number of racial disparities in all of California. And this is a modest improvement, everyone, from when we were ranked #1 just a few years ago. And so we think that this has really spawned and sparked a lot of energy and momentum around how can we address these persistent inequities throughout our county. And as the supervisor mentioned, and I heard Monica say as well, the pandemic has really exacerbated a lot of these racial disparities. They've made them worse. And in fact, they've amplified the vulnerability of our lower income communities, of our communities of color. And so it's really important that we focus in on communities that are most in need, particularly those hardest hit by COVID, as we think about how we can address racial inequity in the county. So I want to share, what are we doing? I heard the supervisor Rodoni mention, that there was a lot of conversation perhaps over the last few years, and we really think that conversation is important. It's important to develop that shared understanding and language, but we are making a pivot. We're pivoting towards action, everyone. So I want to share with you some of our equity investments, some of the ways that you can see equity in action in Marin County. So there are lots of different things happening. I'm going to focus in on two just for the sake of time. The first one that I want to cover with you is our Race Equity Action Plan. And this is a plan that was put together primarily by community members. And they came together in the midst of the pandemic, everyone. They worked for over a year to develop a set of recommendations around how they think the county can best address racial inequity. And the board has allocated about $1.7 million to fund these recommendations. What you see on the right is the cover of the plan. And I know my colleagues who are working behind the scenes here are going to put a couple of links in the chat for you all to get more information if you'd like to take a look at these documents. So this is a shot of some of the residents that we had the pleasure of working with. It included folks from across the county, from all of the different supervisorial districts. We really wanted to focus in on youth and young adults, but also our older seniors and our elder community members as well. So it was an intergenerational approach we took. We wanted to focus on communities of color who have a lot of lived experience when we think about racial inequity. We focused in on those who are undocumented or underdocumented, women or LGBTQ plus community members, and folks with disabilities as well. So we wanted to make sure that voices that don't traditionally participate had a voice in this process. That was so important to us. And what I think was the result of that, what I know to be true, is that we came up with a plan that really represents a lot of the challenges, but also the aspirations of these communities. And so they came up with a set of 3 priority areas. The first one is mental health. The other is housing, and the last one being economic opportunity. So they drilled down and came up with strategies, actions, and performance measures for how we can move the needle around these issues. And I'm just going to share a snapshot of some of the priority actions that they came up with. You can see a lot more in the plan itself. I encourage you to check it out if you want some fun weekend reading. But this is just a quick snapshot of some of them. So one of the things they came up with was to establish a mental health access fund. And so for people who are struggling with mental health challenges, as we all do, that sometimes we don't have the resources to pay for those services. And so they suggested, how about we come up with a fund to provide people with the support that they need? Another one is establishing an $18 minimum wage ordinance. And in hindsight, we're thinking that maybe that should be higher. So this group is going to have a chance to make some refinements to these recommendations, but we're thinking through, we want to raise the minimum wage ordinance. And we also recognize that there's going to be an impact on our smaller businesses. And so we have to keep that in mind when we think about some of these recommendations and actions. Another suggestion or strategy they came up with was around creating new professional development programs, especially for youth and young adults. And they really keyed in on financial literacy being something that's really important for our young people to have more skills around. So these are just some of the actions that they came up with. And I just wanted to give you a flavor for what's in the plan. And the next step, everybody, and this is where we're headed to as we think about action, we're moving into implementation of this plan. We don't want this to be something that just sits on the shelf and gets dusty. Instead, we want to embody this plan in so many different ways. So we're putting together an implementation team that'll be comprised of community residents. We still want this to be community driven, community led. And so you'll see that the number of residents is the highest of all of our participants. We also want to really engage our CBO partners, our community-based organizations and nonprofits. And so we've reached out to them and invited them to join this effort. And then last but not least, we're also recognized it's so important to have our governmental partners at the table. So we've engaged city, town, and of course our county colleagues as well to be a part of this implementation team. And they'll really be responsible, everyone, for one, identifying what work has already happened around these particular actions. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to start from scratch. We know there's already been a lot of energy and momentum around the minimum wage ordinance, for example. So we want to build on that. We know that there's been a lot of energy and momentum around public health or mental health crisis vans, for example. So we don't have to start from scratch, but instead, let's tap into that existing work. Let's make it stronger. Let's go deeper, and let's do that together. Another piece that they'll be doing is really getting a sense of how much is this going to cost. I mentioned that we have about $1.7 million to implement these recommendations, but for many of these, that won't be enough. And so we have to be creative with how we can braid the funding, how we can pull together different resources and make this happen. So those are some of the things that the implementation team will be working on. More to come on this in the next month or so. So please do check our website out and we'll keep you updated. The next thing I want to tell you all about is a process that I am especially excited about, and it's called participatory budgeting. And this is a really exciting process that we want to share with you. But I'm curious, from the folks in the audience, can we just get a show of hands, or maybe your real hand or your virtual hand? How many of you are familiar with the term participatory budgeting? Can you just give me a show of hands here? I'm curious. Have you ever been a part of a process like this? A couple of folks. Okay. All right. Just curious about that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more. So thank you, Martin. I see you there. You're familiar. That's excellent. So what is this? It's kind of a long name, participatory budgeting. And so we call it PB for short. And what it really is a democratic process for community members to decide how to spend part of a public budget. And basically what it does, everyone, is it puts real power over real money in the hands of community members. So they decide how to spend and how to invest our limited dollars. So this is something that is taking place across the country, everyone. It actually was first done in Brazil, in Porto Alegre, in 1989. That was the first PB process. But now we've seen it catch a lot of attention. I don't want to use the word fire, across the country. And we see it taking place in Durham, North Carolina, in Chicago, in Greensboro. Our neighbors here in the Bay, Vallejo, has been running a PB process for over 8 years. Oakland is another really leading pioneer of participatory budgeting as well. So this is a way for us to get a sense of what are the needs and issues of our constituents, and for them to be a part of developing solutions. So what I want to do is just share a little bit about our process, everybody, and tell you how you can get involved. And so we see PB as a way to expand civic engagement. It's a way to make budgets more transparent so people can know where the dollar's going, how is it being spent, how can I have a voice in this process? And we also see it as a way to advance racial equity. So these are the reasons why we are so invested in using this PB type approach. And as I mentioned, we have about $2.5 million to fund community initiated projects across the county. We're going to focus in on these 3 areas that I mentioned before. And we also want to focus in on certain geographies, on certain communities here in Marin County. And so we're using what's called the Healthy Places Index, the HPI Index. And this is another data set that tells us how the county is doing along certain health indicators. And what we see is that some of our communities are a little bit below what we'd like them to be. And those communities include Novato, it includes West Marin, San Rafael, as we know, includes the Canal, Marin City. So these are the communities that we want to focus in on. We want to direct money towards those communities that are most in need, towards our most marginalized and impacted communities. And so this is the way we thought to do this. So I want to step you through just briefly through our process. And you can, as I mentioned, check out our website to learn more. The first part, everyone, is developing a committee. And so this is what I'm really excited to share with you today, is that we're pulling together a new committee. It's called the PB Committee. And this will be a group of residents. We're looking for about 9 to 15 residents from each of our supervisorial districts to come together and to help co-design this process with us, to be our partners in this effort. And in particular, we're looking to engage communities of color, okay? We're looking to engage, as I mentioned, youth and young adults, our senior communities. We're looking at our LGBTQ plus folks, women, people who have disabilities or mental health challenges, physical health challenges. And then, of course, our undocumented and underdocumented folks as well. So these are the people who we're looking for in particular. We're looking for them to help us with outreach. So they'll be a part of conducting our grassroots outreach approach, particularly in our communities that are underserved or underrepresented. And so they'll be out in community working with us. They'll also be reviewing the proposals that we get as well. So this is a really important role, everyone, for people to get involved and get connected with this process. And you might be wondering, well, who should apply to this, Jamillah? I'm interested, but tell me a little bit more. And so some of the qualities that we're looking for, everybody, we want people who enjoy being out in community, who enjoy talking and engaging with their local community members, for example. We want folks who have outreach experience. So I'm thinking about promotoras, I'm thinking about neighborhood watch leaders, for example. We also want people who are multilingual. We really want to be sure that language is not a barrier. And so we want to have a multicultural, multilingual team to help us in this effort. And then we want folks who have experience working in our target communities, like Novato, like the Canal, like Marin City. So these are the things that we're looking for when we are reviewing the applications. You can apply today, everybody. If you know of someone, if you yourself want to apply, I encourage you to do so. The link's there on the slide. My colleague will pop it in the chat as well. This application will be open until about June 17th. So we have about a month more. So we wanted to be here today to let you know about this opportunity, but I want to get to some other good stuff here. I want to tell you about the next step in the process. And that's to brainstorm ideas. Okay, that's the first part of our process. And really, we're asking people this really important question of what would you do? What would you do, Yolanda? What would you do, Monica, to advance racial equity with $2.5 million? How would you do it? What would you do with $2.5 million to advance racial equity in your community, in Marin County? And I'm going to pause here. I just want to let that sit with you for a moment, for you all to think about that. And I'd love it if you can flow some of your responses in the chat. What do you think is coming to mind for you? How would you spend this money? So think on that for just a moment. All right, I see the wheels turning. I see a lot of heads nodding on this one. So as these ideas come to you, pop them in the chat and we'll come back around to them. But that's essentially the question that we're asking everyone, is what would you do with this money? And so the next part is then to take those ideas and to turn them into proposals, everyone. That's the next step in the process. And so we are giving out grants of $50,000 to $250,000. Okay, so you can put a proposal together and it can be up to $50K to $250K. And the only real requirement, everyone, is that you be a 501c3 or you partner with someone who has that status. Okay, so let's say you're a group of residents and you have this great idea about financial literacy training and you want to submit a budget or proposal for $50K. Well, how would you do that? Well, we would recommend that you partner with a local organization. You might partner with the Canal Alliance. You might partner with you name it, and you would come together with them and develop a proposal. I also want to share with you that we are having grant writers support you in this, okay? We recognize that putting together a proposal for an average community member, that might feel a little daunting. That might feel like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that, but you can, and we want to support you with it. And so we have a team of grant writers who are going to help bring these ideas to life. So if you all want to tap into that, just know that that's a resource that's available. And these are some of the ideas that folks have come up with in some of our other conversations. I see here in the chat, after school programs for underserved youth, childcare, education, increasing wages is something that's really key. I see as well, intergenerational, multicultural, multilingual community programs, housing support and mental health is coming in here. Free community internet is another one. I heard the supervisor talk about digital Marin. Another one here from Amy is childcare for working mothers who are retooling for a better job. These are great examples, everybody. These are great ideas. And so you can very well put together a proposal and submit it, okay? And you can get money to fund your idea. And so you might be wondering now, well, how are you going to evaluate these proposals? What's going to happen? And so that committee that I mentioned to you a moment ago, they're going to help us with this. They're going to review your proposals, and it's going to be based on really three things. It's going to be based on, is it feasible? Is it possible to do this with the money that you're requesting? Is there a need for it? Is this something that your community has said, this is important? This is an issue that we have to tackle. So is there a need? And then lastly, everyone, is what's the impact? How is this going to change lives? How is this going to impact outcomes in the community? So this is what we'll be looking at when we evaluate the proposals. The next step is to vote, everyone. And so we are inviting folks, anyone who's 14 years of age or older can vote. We also are opening it up to people who live, work, own a business, who attend school in Marin County. So it's open to really everyone, essentially, who has that age requirement and who live or work in the county. And we plan to be out. I think this process will be really defined by how well we're able to do outreach. And so here's an example of a process where they're out in community. So we plan to be at libraries, at sporting events, on soccer fields, in community centers, at upcoming events, fairs, and festivals, for example, because we want people to tap into this. So we're going to do all that we can to meet people where they are. So instead of asking them to come to us, we're going out to them. Okay, so if you have ideas, if you want to invite us to speak at your group or your organization to share this process, we would love to do that. We want to make sure people know about it and are excited about it just as much as we are. And then wrapping this up here, everybody, the next step, and maybe the most exciting for our proposers, is to fund the projects. And so the board has agreed to fund the winning proposals, and we'll start sharing the funds out in early 2023. And then the last step, and I think maybe the most important one, is to implement the projects, okay? And so we'll see people who are taking their ideas from vision to action, and they'll actually be implementing these projects, and they'll share updates with the community around what's working, how community members can get involved, and so on. So that's the participatory budgeting process in a nutshell. I know that may have been a lot of information to consider, so I want to let you know that we have an upcoming information session should you want to learn more, and that's on June 2nd. From 6 to 7:30. So you can sign up for that if you're interested in learning more. But basically, this is our timeline, everybody. We are coming to you early in the process. If you want to submit a proposal, that can happen in September. So right now we're towards the end of May. We wanted to give plenty of time for our community groups, our residents, to think about what proposal do you want to develop and to identify who you want to partner with. So that you have plenty of time to do that. So that's the process in a nutshell. Just quickly, I want to share what's coming next. I know I'm coming up at the end of my time here. So what's coming up next, everybody? Please do spread the word. We really would appreciate your support for this committee. We want to make sure that it's representative, that it's multicultural, that it's multilingual, and that it's folks that have the lived experience that we're seeking. So you can apply up until June 17th. And then to start thinking about what ideas would you want to propose on? and who are the partners that you would want to work with. I mentioned that you can apply in September of this year. So with that, everybody, please do check out our website. It's really a one-stop shop for you to learn more about what we're up to. I've only shared really 2 of the many programs that we're working on, but you can also always learn more. You can sign up for updates, and we can keep you informed. So we'd love to stay connected with you. And with that, I'm going to stop my share and just say thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look forward to the discussion and Q&A.
Thank you very much, Jamillah, for sharing about the wonderful work that you have been doing in the last very few short 4 months, I believe, since you came on board, and also for sharing your vision, or the vision of the equity team, and also for sharing the equity action plan. I think that's very important for us to know as leaders what the county has been doing, because I feel like we were sort of like wondering. So these really paints like the big picture. And I also wanna thank again Supervisor Rodoni, and also acknowledge our other supervisors for your service and commitment to our community. And as you mentioned, the last couple of years, our focus has been on keeping our community safe around COVID, but hopefully we can now shift gears and focus our attention back to these particular matters that hugely affect our community, such as our topic today, which is equity. And we invite not just the supervisors and our county equity director, but all of the Marin County leaders to mindfully and intentionally represent all the communities in our county as we walk into the different spaces when we're doing our work. And hopefully one day, Marin County will no longer be the second most, county with equity issues, and hopefully one day will be a role model to other counties and hopefully other states. But I really would like us to move into comments or questions to that our audience may have, or even words of appreciation for our guest speakers. Let's see who was first. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, we have Amy. I'm not sure if I'm going to say that correctly. Amy Lickover from the Federation. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I'm just speaking for myself here. Of course, the 2 presentations were extraordinary, and I thank you for all the good work, the hard work, Supervisor Rodoni and Mrs. Jordan, that you're doing. It's really extraordinary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But we're speaking a lot about economic equity and housing equity, but one issue, and my generation is showing here, that we're not talking about is women's rights. And of course, pay equity enters into that and all that, but there's so much more there. And I saw sexuality and I saw gender, but I saw nothing about equity for women and men. And there are issues that are out there. Some of them are generational, some of them are cultural, but I would be very interested, and perhaps now is not the time, to learn more about what your groups are doing for equity amongst the sexes.
Sure, and I can tee us up, and perhaps Supervisor Rodoni would like to add, but thank you so much for the question, Amy. And I want to really just take a moment to reflect on that one slide that had the different dimensions of equity. And so we're looking at age, we're looking at race, we're looking at gender, sexual orientation, language, countries of national origin, disability. So all of these factors really make up who we are as people. So we're including all of them as we think about equity for the county. So I just wanted to be sure to underscore that point. I also want to mention that we have been in regular communication with the Marin Women's Commission. I just met with them recently around an upcoming resolution that they're putting together, and gave some of our strategic thought, partnership, and guidance around that. And I think there's a lot more for us to uncover and explore together. So we look forward to partnering with that commission and those leaders to really make sure that we elevate the issues of women and amplify strategies that are working to support them.
That's excellent. Please feel free to call on me.
Thank you.
And I would just add, it's often difficult to include everything in these presentations, but literally everyone is included when you're talking about equity. We have to do it. We have to include everyone. More specifically, at the county level, the board has directed HHS to particularly look at women's right to choose and what the county's role will be should Roe versus Wade be overturned. And we're hoping that HHS comes back with a plan to how to address that from a low income women's perspective, and also request some funding to help provide some assistance. So it's more specific about that, but yeah, we're meant to be inclusive of everyone, and we should. It's hard to include everyone in our list that we're mentioning, but they're all included. If we don't include them, we're not going to be successful.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions. Nadine?
Hi, I heard it mentioned in, is it June 2nd that there will be an informational meeting? And I didn't know if that link for information about that was in any of the chats that was it posted in the chat or not? If we want to let people know about it.
So we'll get that posted and just in short order here. We also plan to send all of these links over to Monica and team to include in your follow-up notes and everything, but we'll
Thank
put
you.
get that in there. So it's June 2nd from 6 to 7:30. And we'll put that link in there in just a moment.
And thanks for such a comprehensive reporting that you did. It's terrific.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and we will be sharing the recording as well in a couple of days. So expect that if you participated today. Diana?
Yes, let me lower my hand. My name is Diana Lopez, and I'm the chair of the Marin County Commission on Aging, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Jamillah. It's a great presentation. We represent the over 70,000 older adults, people that are 60 and over, all throughout Marin County, and we'd like to invite you to one of our meetings to speak with us and also to offer to support your work. Thank you.
Wonderful. Whoops. And let me just say to your point, Diana, thank you so much. We'd be happy to come and speak with the group. Would love that. Thank you for the invitation. And that we're also a part of an upcoming study around aging, integrated aging services and support. So that's another process that's happening to make sure that our aging community is supported and that we address any issues that they're facing. So happy to share more about that. But thank you, Diana. Look forward to talking with you later.
Wonderful. And now, if there's any further comments or questions, I'd like to go to our announcements.
Brenda, we have Berta Campos, Anicetti.
Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see you, Berta.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for the wonderful updates, and it's really exciting to see that Novato and West Marin are being included in future plans. Oftentimes, this county is pretty famous for doing a lot of action in the area in San Rafael when we talk about Spanish speakers, but West Marin and Novato often get left out. So I'm really excited to see a specific targeting plans for those specific areas. And I know that there's been a lot of action happening with digital, like you reported in West Marin, which has been great. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I'm sure you thought of this, but just to point it out, that for your committees, we're looking for community to be part of these great planning committees, and promotores came up in that list, right? But I just want to remind everybody, at least for our group of promotores from Novato and West Marin, they are volunteers and they have 2 to 3 jobs during the day and evenings and weekends. So oftentimes a lot of people want promotores to be included in these discussions. The reality is that we have to compete with what they are earning during those hours, and oftentimes they earn better money than some of us in this call. They get $25, $30 an hour, and it's hard to get them to additional meetings from what they're already committed to, because we can compete with that kind of of necessity that they have to do their jobs, their pay jobs. So just an awareness about that piece, that a lot of, if you really want low income and hardworking people, it is a challenge sometimes to get them to ongoing meetings because of they have to go to work, to pay their bills and stuff. So just a reminder about that piece, that if you want to include the voice, it's important to think about that too.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Bertha, because it reminds me that I should have mentioned that we will be providing a stipend to our committee members for that very reason. We know folks are busy. We know there are a lot of demands on our time, and we want people to feel compensated for all that they contribute. So we will be providing a stipend. We're also providing recommendation letters. We feel like this is a resume builder, particularly for our younger committee members as well. So we want to find ways for it to be a win-win for everybody. And so we're open to other suggestions about that, but I so appreciate you lifting up the importance of compensating community members for their time and their energy.
Well, thank you both for addressing this particular issue, and thank you, Bertha, because as you have been doing a lot of work in the Novato community and also West Marin community, oftentimes they sort of like get forgotten, and we want to make sure that they're also at the table. And it is a very good point what you brought up about the the extra work that people have to do. They want to participate, but they have their families, and then also they have 2-3 jobs. So thank you both for addressing that, which is very important. And now I think we're ready for our announcements. So we have the first announcement, and that's the grand opening for the Multicultural Center of Marin. We are in a new building now, and that is in downtown San Rafael. The address is 709 Fifth Avenue, and the grand opening will be June 9th. Doors will open at noon, but the celebration and ribbon cutting will be 1 to 5. And I believe Supervisor Rodoni and other elected officials will be there as well. So hopefully you can all join. Parking, it is a little bit complicated there. So, just please consider that. The next announcement that we have is just a little reminder about May Mental Health. There's a lot of events happening in the community, and some of them are posted in there, but we also wanted to remind everyone here that oftentimes we're just doing a lot of work for our community, and we don't do enough for ourselves. So, not only this month, but throughout the year, also be mindful about your own mental health and doing some sort of, activity or something to make sure that all of us as leaders in our community are keeping ourselves healthy and safe. So, we wanted to acknowledge that. And then the last announcement is, as Yolanda, our chair, mentioned at the beginning, is that we're very excited to announce that we're going to have our first in-person luncheon after 2 years back at Joe's on 4th Street. And the next one will be September 1st. And we're gonna start networking around 11:30, and then the luncheon will take place between noon and 1:30. The topic is on education, which is another very important topic in our community. And also given that we're gonna have by then a new elected superintendent. So hopefully you can all join, and we are very excited about going back in person again. And I think that's the last of it. And unless I'm missing something else, but hopefully you can all join us in person. We're going to be sending more information as in regards to the this in-person event, but also the recording and the other additional information that Jamillah mentioned earlier. And is there anything else that anyone else would like to share? Committee members? No, okay, so I think we're all, we're done. And again, thank you very, very much for your wonderful presentation and for giving us this update that it was needed. It was important for everyone to know what the county has been doing. So thank you both very much. All right, bye everyone.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.